All right. Thank you so much for joining us on our Q&A webinar for our full proposal. So my name is Evans Chinembiri. I am the Regional Innovation Hub Manager for the South and Central Africa Regional Innovation Hub. And I want to welcome you to the full proposal application webinar. First of all, I want to congratulate you for making it this far. I mean, we're excited to have you in this stage of the CFI process. And I think it's a good time to take a moment to give everyone who's on this call who's made it through a round of applause, because you certainly do deserve it. So a few housekeeping items to note. This session is being recorded and will be available for your review within the course of will be available on our YouTube channel by tomorrow, hopefully. And because we are using this function, you won't be able to speak during the webinar. But what we do ask you to do is put your questions in the chat box so that we can address these questions, and then we'll be able to respond to you as and when they come in. Again, I want to welcome you to the full application webinar that I'll present with my colleagues, Gabriela Mashiri, and you'll hear from a successful innovator from our first call for innovations, Mr. William Ponela. Okay, without further ado, we'll swiftly go speak through the items that we have on the agenda. Okay. So what do we have on our agenda for today's webinar? We have a high-level introduction of the WE4F project, and I'll give you a process update on where we are on the CFI. In addition to this, we'll review the full proposal application process, so what it is what is entailed in filling out the specific questions and how you go about doing so on SM Apply. And then we'll work through the grant budget details preparation, and then we'll discuss some of the pre-submitted questions that we received to date, and then work through a little bit of some of the additional questions that we might receive at the end of the session. Okay. So let's at a high level, a quick reminder a high level overview of what WE4F is. So in terms of our goals, what we're working towards right now is to increase food production through a sustainable and efficient use of water and energy. And the hope is that by doing this, we increase the income for the base of the pyramid, men and women who are in both rural and urban areas. So how we go about doing this is not your traditional donor delivery method. We really focus on working with businesses, entrepreneurs, not-for-profit organizations that have a scalable product. And then we help them expand and grow that business that provides a service to the interest group that we're interested in. So in all the activities that we do are keen on the promotion of climate and environmental resilience, as well as ensuring that in all the efforts that we do, all the interventions that we introduce, we maintain biodiversity through a holistic management of natural resources and ecosystems. In terms of the area that we operate in 12 countries in the Southern Central Africa region, and that I like to describe it as a picture of SADC without Tanzania and Malawi, but also adding the Central African Republic and Chad. So what are we aiming to achieve with this call for innovations? We're working to award at least between 15 to 20 innovators in this specific call. And we are working with these innovators, we're going to disperse a combination of grants, technical assistance, and/or investment facilitation, depending on the needs of the specific innovators. We're also going to be working with innovators to help improve their ability to scale commercially, help them attract and secure outside investors, and ensure that in their business model, they're integrating critical environmental and social governance themes into how they operate and do and run their businesses. So we'll be working to award between 40 and 200,000 per grant disbursement. And that also depends on what the actual innovation is and the impact and what the needs are for that specific innovation. So where are we in the CFI timeline? Right now, we're at the shortlisted application. We are at the phase where we've asked shortlisted applicants to submit a full proposal, and the deadline for that is the 17th of October 2022. Following this, we'll take all the applications that we received and then we review them internally. Once that's done, we'll set up video teleconference interviews where we sort of go through the proposals in detail, asking specific questions that we've seen as we're reviewing and going through the material. Once that's achieved, we then go to a pre-award boot camp where we check specifically what specific documents are missing, what's required, is the entity really truly a viable entity? Can they handle this kind of disbursement? Those kind of questions. And after that, we then go through a process of developing an accelerated work plan and going through the process of completion of specific documents that we require before we disperse or deliver any sort of TA. Once that's done, we then go make these recommendations to the Secretariat, go through a process of our announcing our IDs, as well as signing grants agreements. So I want to pause here and introduce our technical assistance facilitator, Mashiri Zvarimwa, who many of you may know as an accomplished agricultural expert with experience working with smallholder farmers in the Southern and Central Africa region. And he insisted I must say this, he's also a die-hard Arsenal fan. And I'll pause here and let him lead you to the next section of the full proposal section. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evans, for that nice propaganda. I think it does work well. So as you have heard, my name is Mashiri Zvarimwa. I am the Technical Assistance Facilitator for the Southern and Central Africa Regional Innovation Hub based out of Pretoria. And as Evans has already welcomed you and congratulated you for getting this far, I also want to take the opportunity to also welcome you and say congratulations for making it to the full application stage. I think it has been quite a rigorous period of reviews, and you should be feeling very proud of yourself that you are here today. So I will take you through the full application stage in terms of what you're expected to do as you fill in your full application. And of course, we do start with the overall overview of the full application stage itself. So we do anticipate that we will have up to 30 applicants who will be able to move to the next stage, which is the interview stages. And of course, the reason why you all are here is because the reviewers of your concept notes did find your concept notes to be very interesting, and they thought they were very relevant. So they wanted to know more a little bit about your innovations and your organizations. So in this stage, you will be required to provide in-depth information about your innovation and your company or your organization as it were. And my colleague Gabriela will take you through in a moment the process of how you submit your budgets and the required spreadsheets. As you do complete your full applications, to help the reviewers to get a fair understanding of your expertise and knowledge, and also to help them to make an informed decision about your application, please do make sure that you provide at least 3 past performance references of the work that you've been doing. And also just note that the application process itself will be divided into 3 categories that I will be touching again on very shortly. And one of those themes or categories relates to the environmental, social, and governance issues. And so do make sure that you also review the guidelines that are provided. So to help us review your full applications once you have submitted them, we do have the regional advisory body, which comprises of experienced professionals and experts from the sector, and they'll be ready to review your applications as soon as the 17th of October is over. So let's look a little bit at the evaluation criteria. So your full application will be evaluated based on 3 criteria or 3 categories as it were. The first one being the innovation viability. And this will be weighted out of this will constitute 35% of your total score. And in this category, do make sure that you provide all the information that is relevant to the innovation that you are proposing in the application. And the second category relates to the commercial or financial viability of your organization. So this is where you provide all that information relating to your organization, and it constitutes about 30% of the total mark or the total score, as it were. And the final section of the application relates to the environmental sustainability and governance issues, both for your innovation and your organization, and it constitutes 35% of the total score. So let's take a little bit of a time to look at the format of the questions that you will be interacting with on the SM Apply platform as you complete your full applications. You will realize that there will be like a broader question that will then be broken down into sub-questions. And the reason for breaking this broader question into sub-questions is to provide you with cues to make sure that you cover all the relevant aspects that will enable the reviewers to understand your business model in detail. So do pay attention to each sub-question and make sure that you have responded to its requirements for your application to be reviewed in the full worth of its merit. And as you respond to that, you do make sure that you do not skip any question, but you answer all questions, because remember, at this stage, every single question you respond to is rated. So if you skip a question, it means you are losing scores unnecessarily. So do take your time to make sure that you attend to each and every question that has been posed to you. And as you respond to the questions, also make sure that you are very clear in terms of how your organization or your innovation will impact gender or the base of the pyramid demographics. And maybe at the time of the application, maybe you do not have that in place as an organization. You do not have like any gender specific or gender focused plan. You can still mention that, but then do make sure that you provide some details in terms of what plans you have in place to make sure that you rectify and correct that. One important thing as well as you do respond to the questions posed is how you contextualize the impact of your innovation to smallholder farmers. So, for example, you'll be always ask yourself and say, how do farmers really fit into this whole equation as end users of my innovation or as customers of my innovation? So always have that understanding at the back of your mind, always viewing farmers as the end user or as the customer. But ultimately, whether your innovation, you supply your product or innovation directly to the customers, or you sell through distributors, or you sell through retail clients and other businesses, the farmer will always remain an end user in this. So please do take note of that, because I think it's very important, because the program is very focused on end users and how you impact the end users with your innovation. So you will realize that as you fill in your application, you will be required to provide targets or calculations for your estimated end users and the like. And this is where sometimes we've realized from experience that sometimes innovators do maybe not get it clearly to say what is an end user. So, and how do I calculate that number of end users? So basically what you do for you to calculate the number of end users is you take the number of households or farmers that you are reaching out to, or that you are targeting as your customers or as your end users, and then you multiply that number by the average family size in your country. If you do know, for example, the specific average family size in the community in which you operate, then you are also welcome to provide that number, provided that you can provide the evidence to the number you have given. Otherwise, it is safe for you to just use the average family number in your calculation. And another question will also relate to how many end users or farmers experience an increase in income by virtue of using your innovation. So while it is very possible that if you've got 100 farmers or customers, or end users, it is quite possible that all of them experience an increase in income. But we do caution you to say, make sure that the target you put in here is less than the total number of end users. This just helps us and reviewers to just review your targets in a more realistic manner, so that we don't just assume that everyone who uses your innovation experiences an increase in income. So always make sure that this number is lower than your total number of end users. And the targets that you are calculating here and that you are proposing, make sure that they are gender disaggregated, and they are, what you are targeting to achieve between 2022 and 2024, which is the time frame through which this program will be running. And as always, be realistic. It's okay to be ambitious, but be realistic with your targets, so that reviewers can also see the possibility of or at least they can see the way or the formula through which you can reach to your targets. So be ambitious, but please remain very realistic with your targets. Because our program is very much focused on environmental sustainability, we would require you to provide some information regarding how your innovation impacts the environment and the BOP, either positively or negatively. So do make sure that you are clear in terms of how your innovation interacts with the environment in which you are implementing it. And we've realized from experience that usually innovators prefer only to speak about the positive impacts, which is fine. But sometimes if you do not speak about the potential negative impacts, it might come across as if you don't quite understand how your innovation actually interacts with the environment within which it is implemented. So it is okay for you to state the potential negative impacts that your innovation has, as long as then you can provide the plans that you have in place to mitigate against that. Everything will be okay, and you won't be penalized for that. And because the environmental issue is very important to the program, I really recommend you to say, before you complete this section on your application regarding the environmental sustainability component of your organization, please follow the link that is provided and watch a webinar that has been conducted by the USAID Bureau Environmental Officer, and it will help you to get the context and the direction in as well, in terms of how you can respond to ESG related issues that affect your organization. I will now pause here a little bit, and what we've done is we have invited here on the call as well one of our own, one of our innovators from our first call, to really give you the tips on how you can be successful in this stage of your application stage. So we do have Zone for Energy on the line. And Zone for Energy is a leading social enterprise from Zimbabwe that supplies solar home systems and solar solar irrigation and water supply products in Zimbabwe since 2013. And to date, they've distributed over 25,000 units, and they do have in there on the waiting list over 300,000 requests on their waiting list. And representing Zone for Energy today is Mr. William Ponela, who is the CEO of Zone for Energy. Mr. William Ponela is an inventor in his own right and an entrepreneur. He is also an aspiring student of the famous Eliud Kipchoge, the famous Kenyan long distance runner. So I will pause here and hand it over to Mr. Ponela to take it over from here. Over to you, Mr. Ponela.
Thank you, Bashiri. It's glad that you have mentioned that I'm aspiring to be. I think I'm going to be the oldest marathon runner anyway. That's my major ambition. Thank you very much. As you know, my name is William Ponela. I'm the CEO for Zone for Energy in Zimbabwe. I really want to congratulate everybody who has actually managed to make it to this stage, and it actually shows that your innovation has got something interesting to take you this far. I would talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts in terms of how you are supposed to be completing your full application. The first do is basically to do with clarity and relevance. Make sure that you read and review all the questions which have been supplied for you to answer while you are fulfilling the needs for your full application. It's very important that all the questions and instructions which has been given, you go through them and read and get to understand what they require you to do when you're responding to the full application. Be precise and make sure that you are short to the point. There is no need for you to provide unnecessary information at this stage of the application. Please make sure that you only provide the relevant necessities and the relevant information in regards to the application. The full application is going to be the document between you and the reviewers. So it is very important that your responses have to be very clear and articulate the expansion plan in regards to the requirements of the full application. Please be clear and show how your application is going to address the two aspects of the three nexus of water, food, and energy. But rather, make sure that food, whatever the choices of your combination of the nexus, make sure that food becomes one of the factors. This is the requirements and very critical for the full application. Please also provide a clear and demonstrate how your model is going to address the BOP market, because this is the requirement of the proposal. You are focusing on the end user, who is particularly the BOP, the people at the bottom of the pyramid. So demonstrate and clearly show how your product, how your innovation is going to be affordable and accessible to the BOP market. I go on and also wanted you to say it's very important that you clearly elaborate your expansion plan in relation to how the grant is going to catalyze you to grow the business beyond the grant. This has to be aligned with the budgets which they have been provided with, and also elaborate the current and the future partnerships which you intend to make in relation to your proposed expansion plans. It's also important that you demonstrate a clear understanding of the environment which you are going to be operating in. It's particularly things to do with the regulatory context and the political requirements within the environment which you are going to be operating in. Be specific in terms of
William, William, we can still hear you. Can you hear us? Okay, in the absence of William not being able to speak, perhaps I can work through the remaining sections that are left whilst we are figuring out, whilst he's trying to get back on. Once you get on, William, just please let me know. Then we'll move it there. So in terms of, I think the point he was on was speaking specifically to providing specific details on actions and plans as it relates to environmental sustainability and gender impact for the business model and relevant supply chains. So again, a big do, and something that we've noticed in the past applications, is that we need to have realism in your budget and in your narrative. So be clear in how you're going to use the proceeds and how you plan to source investment, outside investment, and scaling up. And most critically, be sure to provide tangible evidence. This is something that is really critical, particularly around the estimates you've got for how much end users you're going to get and so on and so forth. It's really important that wherever possible, put in accurate and clear numbers. in the past applications, we've had people who have changed these numbers as we're advancing to other stages. So in terms of things not to do, this is really critical. It's important that what you should make sure you do not provide only broad overview of expansion plans. Details everything. We need to understand how you're going to use these resources we're working to provide for you and how you plan to expand. Do not provide ambitious but unrealistic goals or narratives for sales, commercial growth, and social environmental impact. This is very, very important. We have RIB members who are skilled in this space. The team itself is really skilled in this space, and they can tell what is reasonable and what's not reasonable. So we advocate for you to be very realistic in your assumptions and in the estimations that you provide. Do not think of WE4F as a traditional grant program. This is critical. WE4F only aims to scale up proven technologies and services while enabling access to private sector capital. Critically, do not forget to add the relevant links and attachment that support your full proposal. And probably the most important, with the load shedding that's going on and the various issues, that is, do not leave the submission up to the last minute. Something always goes wrong, and almost always, every single time, someone is always asking for an extension in the very last minute. So please start your application now. Make sure you work through it and try and finish it a day or two well in advance so that you don't have any issues in the last minute. Without further ado, I'm going to take a pause now and thank William for sharing his insights with us. And I think for those of you that haven't been listening so far, now consider this your alarm clock. Now is the time to sit up and take notes. I have the pleasure of introducing to you Gabriela Makonese, our grants and finance specialist, who will speak to the grant preparation and how you go about doing this in the full application process. Gabriela, over to you.
Thank you, Evans. Okay, so after you have completed your application, the narrative part of your application, you will then have to download the grant budget details template. This is where all your inputs will go into showing us your activities that you are suggesting for the grant amount that you are requesting. So this is what it looks like. You only have to make your inputs on the section that's marked in orange. I hope you can see that on your screen. It says action required. The rest are just for you to read and to refer to. Then we'll go in the next slides, we'll just go over what the different sheets entail. All right, so the first sheet that you will encounter in the Excel document is guidance on preparing the budget. We're going to go over some of these elements in the webinar, but as you go back in your organization, this might also be completed by someone typically in finance that is not necessarily part of this webinar. So we've then put this sheet at the beginning so that if you have, I know some organizations have specifically like a grants finance person, this is some of the details that they should refer to and check before you submit to make sure that you don't have any unallowable expenses included for some of your activities. Okay, so this is the only sheet that you will complete in the whole budget. Remember, as I said, the rest are just for references. So the gray areas, they're specifically marked gray so that you know that these are the cells that you are required to make your inputs into. The rest of the areas are actually password protected so that the template remains the same and that the other sheets are able to get the feedback they need to draw some of that data into the sheet properly. So you will only be able to edit the parts that are gray in the entire Excel document. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is an example of what a completed milestone looks like, right? So your budget has different subsets, which are called milestones. There's about 6 of them. So we're going to ask that you don't delete any of the milestones. If you don't plan to submit 6 milestones, you just want 3, you just want 2, you just want 1, it's up to you. But we've just shown you now on the screen what an example looks like. So if you see in the first column, it has some inputs. Let's just go over one example. The first one is a proposed salary for project director. You need to complete the units. So they are seconding this individual for 5 days on the project, and then the rate is $250 US. Please make sure that all your inputs are in US dollars. And then the grantee that completed this budget is proposing that the cost for the project director salary will be paid directly by them for the 5 days that they mentioned for the duration of this milestone. So let's say this milestone is just for 3 months, right? So this forms part of the innovators match funds. So that's why, excuse me, in the budget notes, it says matching contribution by grantee. So you are required to fill in every single, where you have an activity listed that has a cost attached to it, you need to complete every single cell in that line. Do not leave anything out and do not estimate, right? So for example, what I mean by that is just mean what you write. If you want to second somebody to the project and saying no, that your as part of your contribution in terms of your match, you would like this person's salary put in all the correct details and make sure that they're done correctly. Okay, so the next couple of slides we're going to go through, you don't have to make the inputs. Remember, as I said, the inputs you would have only made on the previous slide that we've just discussed. So everything else that we're discussing from this point forward is just drawn from what you had inputted in the first sheet that we spoke about and we went through in the gray areas. So you've now completed that. So what the Excel document is going to do, according to the formulas that we've put in, it's that it's going to complete the other 3 sheets for you. So it's just for reference for you to check. The first one that we're looking at is this one called the budget summary. It's just a high level overview. It's auto-filled and you don't need to input anything. It's just for you to be able to see. If you can look on the right of your screen, it says WE4F contribution. It's just showing you the ratio, right? To say, how much are you proposing that WE4F contributes and how much is your match? So we'll go into the element of match in another slide, but we do encourage match. And this is a part of our evaluation criteria. Okay, so this is just a high level view for you to see what is in each milestone, what is the proposed amount for WE4F, which is us to cover, and what is your match component for that specific milestone, and then what is the overall percentage, what does it look like? Is it 100-100? Is it a 50-50? Okay, so then the next sheet, which again will be auto-filled, is called the milestone budget. So as you can see, it just breaks down what each milestone looks like, and then shows you an overall estimation of the dates that you've put in there. Then what you want to see at the bottom is the verification, the bottom there in blue. You want the verification to say okay, as it is in your screen now. If it doesn't say okay, then just go back and check where the error is and make all the adjustments that you need to make. So this is a good check-in that we've put in for you to see whether there's anything that you need to go back to. Okay, so this is the slide that I was speaking about to say I'll expand a little bit more in terms of the match funding. So you as the applicant, you're encouraged to include details of your planned match funding. And the match funds will be finalized between us and the innovator or the awardee or the grantee closer to the time of the award. Match funds, and I know this is probably a question that will be coming up soon. What we mean by match funds is that this is cash or non-cash resources of the organization that are set to be used as part of co-financing of the project together with the grant funding, right? So that's a simple definition of what match funding is. And then another component that we would like to flag you on is that the resources can be from the organization's own resources. It can be government funds or any other resources which are not funded by USAID. So if you just remember that as you are considering which funds to allocate towards your match, because this is also a USAID funded project, so we don't want to be mixing those two together. And then also grant funds cannot be used for capital expenditure valued at $5,000 or more per unit. And then grant funds cannot be used to purchase any equipment or item produced from China, right? I'd like you to consider this now, because this was an issue with a number of our innovators or shortlisted people in the last round of applicants that we had, and this is a non-negotiable. So I would advise you, if you are in this situation where you source your supplies from China, you will need to look for an alternative supplier that is not from China. Okay, then now we'll talk about 4 other supporting documents that you will need to attach as part of your application. So just a reminder that your application is 110% based on SM Apply. So everything that I've been speaking to you about should be done. Whether you download the document, it needs to be re-uploaded onto SM Apply. We will not be accepting any applications downloaded from SM Apply and sent to us via email. And the simple reason is that all the evaluations that the evaluators will do on your applications are actually done on SM Apply. So please don't download anything and send it to us. We will be asking you to re-upload it on SM Apply. So SM Apply is where you work as the innovator. It's where we evaluate as evaluators. Okay. So the first document is your certificate of incorporation or business registration. Just give me a moment. I'm just going to switch off my camera. Okay, so the first document is your certificate of incorporation or your business registration. In most countries, this is the same document. Please attach whichever one is fine for you. Please do not attach your tax certificate. It needs to be proof that you are a registered organization in your country. Then the second one is a non-government entity certification. We've provided you with a template for this. So this is just something that it's a 2-liner that says we confirm that this company is not linked to any government entity. Then it's signed by someone in your organization that has the authority to sign such a document on your company letterhead. So it's literally just a copy and paste exercise. Then the third item rather, is your list of your key personnel. So we ask here that you please not give us a list of your entire organization, but rather this is a list of key personnel who have access control and influence over the management and finance of the company. So the restriction should be based on this definition alone. And then you'll be asked to produce the grant document, which we've spent some time going through, as well as a narrative on SM Apply. So this was also another area in the last cohort or intake of awardees where people stopped editing the document here. They thought, okay, I'm done. I did the narrative, I did all my questions, I did the budget, I've uploaded all the supporting documents, and then they left the budget narrative, right? But the budget narrative explains what costs are needed, why, and what period. So it's just a short write-up, a paragraph or 2 that's in SM Apply that you are required to do. This is the last thing that you will do before you click submit. So if you haven't written a couple of paragraphs about your budget on SM Apply, that's a flag for you already that you know that, okay, I'm not done. So please, your application will be incomplete if you don't do this section. And it was something that happened a lot in the last submissions that we took in. Okay, so before I hand over back to Evans, I'd like to remind you again that to use only the templates that we've provided. And please reach out to us, write to us if you are maybe unable to download any of the documents directly from SM Apply, then we can actually email them to you, no problem. But then upon us emailing them to you, then you will have to go and upload them on SM Apply. That is the correct way to make your submissions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gabriela. I think you were clear and the points you made were relevant. And speaking from our experience, this is really, I mean, the experience we've had in the past call, her insights are quite telling. So please make sure that if you didn't listen to it, listen to this part of the recording and make sure that you understand it clearly. Okay. So we're going to transition to our pre-submitted questions portion of our presentation, and this is something that I'm going to do with my colleague Hlologelo Siete, who will be helping me go through the pre-submitted questions. So, Hlolo, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Evans. Question number 1, do you have a different format for the full application?
So at this stage, we will only accept applications received on SM Apply on the SM Apply platform and that are submitted by 4 p.m. Central African Time on October 17, 2022.
Do we need to list technical assistance partners to include in our submission?
No need to do that. The hub will work to procure in-house, where relevant, and external service providers to deliver technical assistance as and when it's required.
Regarding TA costs within the organization itself, what types of HR functions can the TA grant be applied to? For example, can it go towards funding key specialists, technical management gaps in the current structure?
Yes, I think technical assistance related to organizational capacity development and that is directed to improve internal processes, procedures, and non-financial resources of an innovator's organization. We do provide support there. So an example of this may include a focus on human resources management, financial management, accounting systems, audit systems efficiency, team management and leadership training, or general operational and efficiency expansion elements.
How do you determine the minimum matching funds required?
So there is no minimum required amount, but however, we do encourage applicants to mention tentative or expected matching funds and provide, and once the award process goes through, they must provide proof in the interview stage and at the time of award of said matching funds.
Are there any restrictions on the percentage of funds that can be received by a sub-awardee? What is the distinction between a sub-awardee and a partner in the application or consortia?
So the two questions. So, okay, a sub-awardee can receive no more than 49.9% of the funding. So the bulk of the funding must go to the main awardee, to the lead applicant. And the distinction between a sub-awardee and a partner in the application is that the lead applicant will be the main point of contact for the hub for grant making and will be the prime grant recipient.
How many people are invited for this round and how many winners are expected? So
as it's currently stand, we have 37 semi-finalists. So there are 37 people who are developing the full proposal. The hub, we're expecting to have a final cohort of about 15 to 20 innovators, and we reserve the right to change this projection based on the evaluation of the applications, the quality that we receive.
Can the total budget indication in the full proposal differ from the concept note application?
Yes, this is allowed. I think we would emphasize that you explain the difference in the budget narrative section. However, it's critical to know that the decision of the award to award the full amount or not still lies with the WE4F SCA hub.
Do we need to keep the project duration as 2 years?
No, the total 2 years is the maximum amount of years that we could use. Feel free to edit the budget template however needed in terms of in terms of the length of the project, and also adding new budget categories, etc. Particularly if the case is that the specific project is planned for less than 2 years.
Where do I find the application for the second round? I haven't been emailed a link or doc.
Okay, so the application is on SM Apply, so you can log in the same way you did for the concept note. Alternatively, you can refer to the submission confirmation email that you received when you submitted your documentation. If, however, you are having trouble, and my emphasis is that you also check your spam folders, make sure that you double check and make sure that it couldn't be it's not hiding somewhere in your inbox. If you continue having trouble accessing the link, please email us at we4FAfrica@tetatech.com. Okay. So at this point, we want to just see, I want to hand over to my colleague Mashudu and check if there are any specific questions that we received during the course of the presentation. Mashudu?
Thank you, Evans. We currently do not have any questions on the chat that needs to be addressed. So whatever questions that were raised during the presentation were answered accordingly. Thanks.
That's fantastic, thanks. So I guess we want to just check if you have any further questions that you might have that hasn't been covered or any areas that you'd like sort of clarity on. We are happy to put those in the chat and we'll see how we can best respond to them if there are any additional ones. So in the interim, I want to encourage everybody those who haven't, I think I've said this already, but I want to repeat it again. If you haven't started the application process, if you looked at it and you just got the email, the letter, please start now. There are a number of questions that it's very detailed. Take the time out to go through and review the material with diligence so that we don't lose quality applications. It's quite a lengthy process, and make sure that it gets done as promptly as you can. Okay, so because we lost William for a few seconds towards the end, perhaps we can use this time for him to give us some tips, to share some of his tips and his insights. Whilst, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat so that we can address them there. William, over to you.
Thanks very much, Evans. My apologies for the network breakdown. I think Evans had already highlighted, but one of the aspects which I really want to give a tip on is on the response to the questions. Make sure that you have a team. Everybody who is going to participate in the filling up of the application should be participating right from the beginning, because if you fill these things separately from each other, you might have difficulties where your proposal is not talking to your budget lines. So it's very important that you put a team specifically for the project, and you get the team together, and then they have to synchronize everything so that when you are responding to the questions and the budget lines, they communicate with each other. And also, you really need to address the issue to do with the BOP, because that's what the project is focusing on. So you have to make sure that you have really understood your target market, and you have addressed this aspect in your response in the full application. And the other thing is, as I earlier on said, the issue of uncalled for information tends to make confusions with the reviewers. They end up not actually understanding what innovation is all about. So please give only the relevant information which has been asked for. And then lastly, I think I would also want to say people should really demonstrate the market understanding of the area where they are going to be operating the project in, because it's also critical, especially as an innovator, you need to know the environment which you are going to operate in, because it would also require you to put certain policies which might be required in future during the course of the application. So it's critical that you get those things together. For those who might not really be sure in terms of what they have to attach, I think the best issue is to go on the guidelines and tick boxes as you respond to the questions, so that you don't miss anything in the process. Thank you.
And thanks so much, William, for that insight. I mean, you can't, as someone who's gone through this, and sharing your insights is, I think, very valuable to would-be potential innovators. And thanks for that. I just want to check with Mashuda again. Do we have any questions that have come up in the interim that haven't been responded to, that we can fully address on the platform?
There's a question that was posted on the chat from Tatiana. It says you mentioned BOP as consumers, but I would like to ask if BOP farmers could not be our suppliers as part of our program.
And thanks for that. Tatiana, that's an excellent question, and thank you for bringing that. I think the key thing that we have noticed that depending on the model that you're using, I think BOP farmers can also be suppliers. The idea is that if your innovation, if your approach, if your business model leads to an increase in incomes in that specific group. So let's say you are doing some sort of contract farming sort of setup that through your platform or through the way that you're engaging, it allows for them to be able to do so. That is definitely an option, and we have some examples of where innovators operate in that way. And I believe maybe Mashir might want to add on to that if he has any additional comments.
Yeah, thank you very much, Evans. And that is very correct. Depending on your business model, they can be suppliers, but you need to be very clear in terms of demonstrating how they are your suppliers. But also, equally important, you need to make sure that there is no double counting of the same farmer as a supplier on one end and as an end user or a BOP on the other end. So I think if those two are taken care of, like with clarity, it is possible for you to distinguish between the two. Then that's fine. They can be suppliers.
Fantastic, thanks. Any more questions I can see?
We don't have any more questions. I see a hand from Roslyn. Please kindly write your question on the chat so that we can address this. Thanks.
Whilst we wait for Roslyn, sorry, to write down her question, his or her question in the chat, I want to emphasize and stress the importance of making sure that you start your application late. There will be no extensions. There will be no chance for us to be able to extend. So the emphasis is on making sure that you really do have an opportunity to complete your applications. To be really unfortunate if we lose potentially good innovations just because they didn't apply the right documentation or they didn't do it in a way that was efficient to do so. Okay. All right. So one other point I want to make, I think I noticed that there may have been an expectation to see French translation. And unfortunately, right now, as we plan this webinar, we do not have French translation to do so. And also the expectation is that we are trying our best to accommodate our French speakers so that they will be able to respond to the application questions by supplying French documentations. I need to be clear in this point. We are going to, should you become a successful awardee, the mode of communication between ourselves and all the awardees is in English and will continue to be in English. So that is how we intend to operate. I think the idea was just to give an opportunity for those who can't speak to be able to do so. So that is something that we must always bear in mind, that the way we are going to be engaging with all our awardees is always going to be in English. That's something I just need to make note of. Yeah. Mashuri, any further questions?
There are no further questions. My shooter is just having a little bit of technical difficulties, but no further questions in the chat. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Like I said, this presentation will be on the WE4F channel in the next day or so, at the very latest on Monday. When that does come up, we will send a reminder with a link just to let everybody know that the video is up. And if you want to watch again, if you have any further questions, we have the email address to contact us and we'll get in touch with you. Thank you so much for making the time to do this. I want to encourage you to start right now. Get on that application, start the process of application. Make sure that you submit well in advance. If you can do it a day or two in advance so that if there are any issues, you're not going to get caught flat-footed. I cannot stress this enough. The last time we did this, we had so many applications that didn't go through just because they did not finish in time, and we won't be accepting. So please, please, I am encouraging all of you, please make the effort to start the process now and get it done. Gabriela, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Evans. I just wanted to remind everyone that they would have received an acknowledgement email. Like this is for people who don't know how to reroute back into SM Apply. So the acknowledgement email should have your SCA number. That's your unique application number. So you will need that to log back into the system and continue to finish off your full application. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay then. Thank you so much for joining our call, our webinar. It's hopefully we look forward to reading your proposals and all the best of luck. And we'll be speaking with some of you guys real soon in the interview phase. Thank you so much and take care.